I pulled a mom and her kid out of a snowbank at mile marker 214, eastbound, in a whiteout at 3:17 a.m. I figured it was a clean rescue and a hot coffee story. Then I reviewed my dashcam and saw the same black SUV shadowing us for 9 miles, tapping brakes just enough to bait a rear end. 48 hours later, detectives called, and my footage had a name in their folder. Drivers, drop a comment telling where you're watching from. I thought the storm was the only thing in my mirror that night, but something else had been waiting in it. I've run winters long enough to tell the difference between a pretty flurry and a storm that steals sound. When the snow eats the hum of your tires and hands your steering wheel a second opinion, you learn to drive by numbers, not pride. I run a sleeper with a few earned rattles and a heater that could thaw a grudge. My rig pays my mortgage, keeps my kid in boots that last, and keeps my record clean enough that dispatch trusts me with lanes other folks dodge in January. A ticket dents your paycheck, but a mark on your record slows you for years. Companies don't say it out loud. They just stop calling you first. That's why I keep receipts like other people keep souvenirs. I log times even when nobody asks. I say the mile marker in my head when I pass it. My camera catches what my memory can't, and when things go sideways, the truth should be something you can rewind. That night I was eastbound on I-90, hands light on the wheel, chasing a thin break between squalls. The dash read 31, the GPS pulse sat dead on 214, the timestamp glowed 0317. Those numbers seem small until some letterhead asks you to prove you were where you said you were. I've learned a storm can't argue with a frame and a time. Still, a storm will try, and so will people who use it like a curtain. I didn't know yet that the snow wasn't the only thing measuring me that night. The shoulder was more rumor than road, yesterday's plow line buried under skittering sugar. My beams caught a glint that didn't belong to winter, glass, a smear of chrome, a sedan nose kissed into a drift, hazard light pulsing weak on cold blood. I eased off without drama, let the trailer settle in the line I'd made, and rolled up slow enough that my bumper wouldn't write new problems on top of theirs. I found a woman in a parka and a boy with his eyes shut the way kids do when they're trying not to cry. She said she was fine, in the voice people use when the word is for them, not you. I told her to bring the boy up into my cab. We'd start with heat and a breath, then talk plan. The door seals hissed when I opened them. The heater coughed, then did what heaters do, made strangers feel like they'd known you longer than a storm. She said she'd slid trying to make an exit, then realized the ramp was its own mess, so she aimed for the shoulder and prayed the car would stop before the drift did. I nodded, no lecture. Snow doesn't care who deserves blame, it cares who ignores physics. I gave the kid a bottle of water with the cap loosened and a granola bar I keep for nights like this. He thanked me without looking up. That kind of thank you shuts the noise down inside your head for a minute. Back down in the wind, I took the shovel from the rack. Best aluminum the truck stop sells. Cheap shovels bend like excuses. Good ones remember you were there. I cleared the tailpipe, brushed the rear glass, knocked the drift ridge off the bumper, and made a trench for the front wheels. I checked the road 3 times. No car on the horizon, no plow ghosting the lane. I signaled, had her ease into reverse, then forward, rocking the car like it was a boat in slow water. The drift sighed and let go. A small win, clean and quiet. I waved her behind my trailer, and we crept together a mile with me breaking the wind and her tucked where the air is kind. Somewhere back there, a pair of taillights lived in the grey, brightening and dimming at a rhythm that felt more like a decision than traffic. Brake, hold, brake. Then nothing, then back again. I filed it under road noise. That was a mistake, but you can only see patterns in hindsight, and we weren't there yet, not even close. We pulled onto a wider shoulder near the 215 sign. She said there was a friend, 2 exits down with a couch and a spare room. The boy's chin had finally unclenched. I told her I'd escort to the ramp, look at the lip, and if the plows hadn't blessed it, we'd find food and wait it out. She apologized for being in the way. I told her the shoulder belongs to whoever's scared in the moment, and that nobody invoices you for being human. If I had known what was pacing us, I'd have taken one extra beat to look longer at those tail lights. But the first lesson winter gives is to respect momentum. Once you start moving in bad weather, you think 10 seconds ahead and you hold on to the good line you got. So I held it. We reached the ramp. The plow had taken a bite. Not perfect, not terrible. She turned off, eased down like the road was made of glass and promises. She waved. The kid waved. That's the picture people keep. But pictures miss what a camera catches when you're not looking on purpose. Now, the plan that saved me later wasn't born that moment. It came from a voice I keep in my head for messes that grow legs. An SIU investigator, Insurance Special Investigations Unit, once told me at a diner counter, "Kindness is free. Proof is priceless. Time ties the two." I've used that line like a compass. Help first. Record always. Don't chase shadows. Let receipts do the running. I didn't know I'd need him again. But storms have a way of sending you back to the people who taught you something you didn't understand at the time. I rolled on. Snow eased to a flurry. Heart rate settled back where it belongs. If the night had ended there, this would be a story about a good deed and a hot thermos. Instead, 2 days later, I learned that a rescue can be the first scene in somebody else's script. And those scripts are written by folks who count on helpers like me to make their math work. Which is exactly why I keep my own math right where I can read it. Back at the truck stop, I'm nose out parked to keep the grill clear. Habit says you review footage when the road tries to write its version. I pop the Dashcam files, white fog in the beams. Wipe a rhythm like a metronome with a cough, then the numbers settled. 0317 timestamp. GPS heartbeat stamped over MM214. Speed holding at 31. Cameras don't brag, they remember. I advanced to the pullout. That's when the black SUV stepped into the frame like a background actor who keeps finding the lens. Far back at first, then closing, then falling away. Brake tap. Red. Fade. Repeat. Not panic braking. This was a drummer keeping time. It matched the moments the lane opened and the moments it pinched. It matched my brakes, not hers. It matched us. I rolled back. When I stepped down to shovel, the SUV slowed in the far lane, idled in the snow glare, then drifted on at a pace you could measure with a clock, not a speed gun. When we rocked the sedan free, the SUV took a position behind a berm where you wouldn't see it unless you expected it. And who expects a stranger to make your good deed more expensive? When we crept, it crept. When I braked for a ridge, it braked early, as if rehearsed. Through flurries, I pulled what I could of the plate. The last 2 characters were as clear as they ever get in a storm. The first 3 were a guess with teeth. I clipped that, labeled it, then clipped the exit sign reflections, then clipped 9 miles of brake taps with the timestamp stitched end to end, like railroad ties. I saved everything twice. I've never regretted saving too much. I've regretted trusting my memory when a camera stood right there. I found the CB call where I said, 2 vehicles at 2:14, one pushing a pocket for a sedan, and a driver came back, "Angel wings on you tonight." I smiled the first time I heard that. When I heard it after, knowing what I know now, it landed different. I took a deep breath, refilled my cup, and told myself I'd sleep on it. Sleep is the only honest way to see if a pattern still looks like a pattern in daylight. Daylight didn't change the beats. The timestamps didn't move. The plate fragment didn't grow teeth it didn't have, but it didn't lose any either. By lunch, an email landed with a subject line that carries weight for folks like me. SIU. They asked if I had Dashcam from 0317 near MM214 involving a white or black SUV, and if I could talk. They didn't know I already had the clips sorted into folders like a librarian with a grudge. I wrote back, yes. A phone rang. A calm voice said, "We think your rescue intersected something we've been chasing. You got 10. I said I had the rest of the day. "Tell me your story," he said. I did. I gave him numbers, not adjectives. When I finished, he read me a few of his. Plate fragments, claim numbers, weather summaries, body shop invoices with the same handwriting on different names. Then he said the part that made my palms go cold, even though I'd already warmed my hands twice. We suspect someone is shadowing scenes where helpers become shields. He didn't say staged crash. He didn't need to. The pattern hummed like road noise under everything else. Don't contact anyone. We'll coordinate with detectives. Keep doing your route. He said it like a person who has seen good intentions ruin good cases. I promised to sit tight. Sitting tight looks easy in a sentence. In a storm, it feels like you're letting the wind write your day. But time is part of the plan, and plans fall apart when you rush the hinge. I set the phone down and went back to work, not because I didn't care, but because I do. And because I knew the next beat wasn't mine to push. The following morning, I fueled 4 exits past where I'd said goodbye. A black SUV rolled through the lot slow, the way people drive when they're shopping for a face. I stayed behind glass, eyes on the pump, body loose. The SUV idled, then left without fueling. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe nothing had a schedule. By dinner time, a letter hit my inbox from a claims address I didn't recognize. Soft tone, hard intent, phrases like incident vicinity, potential exposure, helpful but proximate. It named the mile marker. It didn't accuse me of anything. It invited me to defend something I hadn't done. I forwarded it to the SIU investigator. He replied, "Saw it arrive, sit tight." He might as well have said, "Do not feed the stray dog, it will never leave." I let the email sit where it landed. The next test came with a cheerful voice. A caller asked the company line about our Dashcam retention policy and compliance hygiene. It sounded official if you've never been audited. A real auditor tells you the policy. They don't ask your opinion. I took a message. They called back with the same number, 1 digit piped in new. Spoofed lines forget what they pretended to be 5 minutes ago. I let voicemail do its job. People who want to trick you hate talking to machines that keep receipts. Late that night, a pickup shadowed me for 2 exits, then peeled off without reason. Or maybe reason wears a hat and doesn't wave. I logged it and kept rolling. The next day, a man at a truck stop asked if I'd had any trouble with thieves pulling trucks into friendly lots during storms. Casual, like he was asking about weather. Friendly, like he practiced sounding local. I shrugged the way men do when we're proud of not taking the bait. "You see everything out here," I said. He smiled too fast and left too slow. I don't spook easy, but patterns talk when they think you aren't listening. I kept the SIU man in the loop without getting in his way. He told me to save everything unusual and to expect a call from a detective. That call came with the sound of paper in the background. He had pulled 2 reports where a helpful driver paid in the end, and the same SUV shape appeared in the corner of both. Once you see the silhouette, it's hard to unsee it. He asked me for the cleanest clip at 31 miles an hour, with the 214 signs sliding past, and any frame where the brake taps lined up with the slope of the road. "Jurors live on numbers," he said. "They want to stand somewhere. Give them a sign to stand under." I sent a package, 9 miles of pattern taps, the partial plate, the exit signs, the timing gaps, the CB call. He said, "This helps more than you know." I told him I know exactly how much proof helps. He laughed, like people laugh when you both just admitted you sleep better when your files are neat. 2 days after the rescue, the mom left a voicemail from a borrowed phone. Her boss had asked pointed questions, exact minute of the slide, which ramp, who helped, if she had the helper's name, whether insurance had reached out yet, and, this part stuck, whether she'd mind waiting for a recommended tow if there was ever a next time. Bosses don't ask that unless boss isn't the only hat they wear. With her permission, I looped the SIU investigator in. He asked her 3 things. Who insured the boss, which shop he'd pushed last time she scraped a fender in the lot, and whether he ever texted addresses with the promise, "We'll handle everything." She answered yes, named a shop that didn't appear on the insurer's preferred list, and forwarded a text with a location that matched a bay door 2 miles from a prior staged crash. Not a public-facing address, the kind you give to people who already know how to knock. A pattern isn't proof, but 3 patterns in a row start asking for handcuffs. The detective said the quiet part. We're getting there. I told him I'd be here when they did. He said, keep your phone on. I said, always. That night, the pickup returned, but this time it stayed in my side mirror, just long enough to make sure I noticed it. I let it be noticed. People who want to rattle you count seconds. People who plan to do a thing don't waste them. I parked under brighter lights than I needed and slept like a person who knows he's being watched and knows he saved the right files. In the morning, the storm had thinned to a sky that pretended to forgive us. Forgiveness is just weather with a pretty name. Within an hour of coffee, 2 messages landed. First, SIU. Your plate partial now matches 2 other helpers' footage. Same black SUV, same brake tap cadence, same gaps between exits. We built a map. Second, the detective. Meet me 2 counties over. His office smelled like coffee and wet jackets. He laid my clip beside a sedan's mirror shot and a plow driver's dash. 3 angles, 1 habit. On the SUV's rear glass, a sticker half peeled. Same place, same tear, like a crescent nicked by a cloudy moon. You don't get coincidences that good in real life. You get choices folks make over and over. He ran the plate through a tool that guesses letters when snow eats fonts. The guess loved our partial. We think we know the car, he said. Now we need to know the people. They staged a friendly stop on a legitimate equipment issue, bad wiper, half-dead plate light, anything your uncle would fix in his driveway with a glove and some salt. When they pulled it over, the passenger sat on a folder with addresses, weather screenshots, friendly ramps, a list of exit numbers, and what looked like a half-written script for convincing a helper to wait for a particular tow. Is this the whole ring? I asked. He said it never is. Rings are like chains. You only see the links you already grabbed. But it was enough to start talking in a different tense. He asked for one more thing. Send me the cleanest clip of your speed overlay at 31, with the 214 sign visible and your brake lights reflecting in the storm. I want the frame that says, here, this is where he did right, and they did wrong. I sent it. He said, that's the one. I felt the storm inside me turn into something steadier. They coordinated with patrol near an address that showed up in 2 insurance files and a body shop invoice with a familiar hand. When they knocked, they found a bay door, a space heater, 3 bumpers without plates, and a whiteboard where somebody had written weather notes like a coach drawing plays. Flurries Thursday, black ice Sunday, payday wed, traffic heavy. In the bottom corner, a note, helpers or coverage. You can think you're ready for that kind of handwriting. You're not. It always looks smaller and pettier than you imagined, and somehow uglier for being neat. The detective didn't smile when he told me the passenger had folded faster than the driver. He didn't gloat. He said, we're turning the slow crank now. Slow is good when fast breaks cases. He asked me to expect a hearing, not a trial. Insurance first, charges later, civil before criminal, because money leaves footprints bigger than bravado. I told him I'd be there if they called. He said they would. There was one more thing to do before the room with the table and the coffee. Insurance doesn't swing gavels, but some conference rooms carry the same gravity. SIU set out claim numbers, dates, and photos. An adjuster read phrases that repeat when stories aren't stories anymore. Helper failed to maintain. Visibility fair. Contact occurred despite caution. But the lawyer in a grey suit asked the only question that matters when you're deciding if you've got a pattern or a pile. How many times does this silhouette show up? They played a minute of my clip. The 214 sign slid by like a witness with no axe to grind. 31 miles an hour burned in the corner. Brake taps bloomed red in the distance. The room was quiet in the way rooms get when everyone is counting their own bad nights on slick roads. Then they played the plow driver's angle. Then the sedan's mirror. 3 views, 1 dance. You don't need narration when you have timestamps that agree. The mum sat with a jacket across her knees. She told the truth the way people do when they're tired of other people telling their version. She said she slid because she misread the shoulder and the ramp. She said no one made her crash. She said someone later asked her to let us handle it next time, and that the sentence felt wrong in her mouth when she repeated it. Feeling is not evidence, but you'd be a fool to ignore a conscience when it taps the brakes in your chest. Detectives kept their notebooks shut during the insurance part. When asked, they said only what the room needed, that they had probable cause to believe the same vehicle hovered near multiple incidents where a helper ended up paying. They didn't name names, they named habits. Habits are what build cases when weather scrubs fingerprints clean. The insurer moved to deny linked claims and freeze pending payouts tied to those plates and addresses. The shop with 2 names on the same door got flagged for a visit with more questions than coffee. The SUV that had been so sure it owned the darkness would meet daylight on a schedule that didn't belong to it anymore. As for me, I got the 2 words that sit better than applause for men like me. Thank you. I nodded, because nodding is how we keep from saying something that makes the moment smaller than it deserves to be. On my way out, the SIU man said, "That frame, 31 next to 214, does more work than 10 pages of adjectives." He's right. Nouns carry the load. Mile markers, timestamps, plates, these are the tools. Use them right, and the truth doesn't need a louder voice, it needs a clearer one. We had one now. And the clear voice had one more thing to say before we closed the book. 2 mornings later, the investigator called with a sentence that was half report, half relief. We knocked on doors. He didn't say raids. He said the black SUV wore a different plate that didn't fit the screws, that the passenger had a folder beneath him when they stopped the car, and that the driver was the kind of stubborn that melts at 32 degrees. He said the boss at the mom's job had a text thread that made a detective sigh out loud. The system would handle that arc. My job was to handle mine. I went to the store and built a winter kit that made sense. Real blankets that don't lie about warmth, a shovel that won't fold when it meets ice, a candle in a tin, a lighter that laughs at wind, a phone charger that doesn't care which brand you bought last time, and a note that said, "Next time, don't wait for a stranger to be brave. Start with you." I loaded a fuel card with enough to make a month softer. I didn't put my name on anything. The storm puts its name on enough. The boy waved when they saw me in a grocery lot the following week. That kind of wave doesn't show up in reports. It shows up when you're loading cases of water and you realize a kid just recognized your truck by the way it sits at idle. Later that night, the SIU man texted me one line. "Your clip turned a rumor into a record." That's the whole job when you strip it down. Turn a rumor into a record. Let the record do the yelling so you don't have to. I kept thinking about those brake taps, how they bloomed red just enough to invite disaster without owning it. We talk a lot about big evils, but the small ones add up. A tap here, a whisper there, a suggestion to wait for a friendly tow. You make a habit of being decent and somebody tries to make a habit of that. That's the part that keeps me careful on nights when the road sings and the mirrors feel like memories. So I keep saving clips. I keep naming mile markers when I pass them. I keep telling the people I help that they already did the brave part by asking. And I keep one thought on a hook by the visor. Kindness doesn't make you naive if you hold on to your proof. Proof turns good deeds into testimonies, not bills. Proof shuts the door when somebody else tries to hang their plan on your conscience. Proof is how you drive through a storm and still recognize yourself when the sun comes back. If you rode with me this far on I-90, tell me where you're watching from. City, state, or the mile marker that raised you. And if stories where receipts beat rumors and decency wins by inches feel like home, subscribe so the next run meets you where you live. Next time I'll tell you about the refund that wasn't at Pump 7 and how one whispered sentence at the counter turned into a ledger nobody could hide.